Morning. Yeah, just a word on this kind of concluding the series. It just we'd been talking about it, and it just happens to coincide with the opening up that's happening in a lot of states in the U.S. And I know that's going to keep an awful lot of people busy. So we're still here for you. We still want folks to tell us if they have ideas for future webinars. We'll probably compile a few of those and then run off a second series when the time comes. But let me get to the heart of the matter today. It's a real privilege to be able to introduce our speaker. You should see him in full video glory there on your screen. I've known Ted for about, I was just trying to think about this. I don't know, 10 years or so. When he started at the Innovation Connector in Muncie, affiliated with Ball State University, and I really saw the remarkable transformation that he created at that facility. It's really been a joy to watch, and he's a very critical part of the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just in Indiana, but really throughout the country. So Ted's the executive director for the Innovation Connector. He's also a Ball State University graduate, and I'm also glad to note that he grew up in Decatur, Indiana, just another fine place up there, close to Carl. He has extensive experience as a franchisee and franchisor. Is expert in franchise relationships, has been a successful startup businessman, successful growth businessman. He has been active with the International Business Innovation Board, having previously served on that. But just really has extensive experience and serves also as a business consultant. And I think you're going to hear some great content here, and you'll start to understand Ted as a leader, because if there's ever been a personification of the servant leader, this is it. So Ted, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Very unnecessary in the introduction. But welcome, everyone. Appreciate you being here with us today. First of all, thank you to Wendy and John for and the WKI team for allowing this to happen. I've been able to participate in each and every one of these Tuesday sessions, and they've been kind of a definitely a highlight of my week. I've always looked forward to it. And it's just been good to see other people and talk to other people and hear other people talk. So it's kind of nice. Also, thanks to my friends in the ESO system. Excuse me, for those of you who aren't familiar with ESO, it's the entrepreneurial support organizations that we are part of. And so for the last 10 years, a lot of these people have taken me under their wing, and I appreciate all that they've done. So today we're going to talk about leading clients and staff through uncertainty. And I've come across this quote. It's a new tongue twister I think everybody will enjoy, but it goes something like this. There are no known knowns. There are known knowns. There are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we now know we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns. There are things we do not know we don't know. I think that sums up the whole seminar, or what I'll call a Zoominar. I've kind of given it that name because we are in a time of uncertainty here. And with all the Zooms and all the webinars, I just call them Zoominars. But Donald Rumsfeld, former defense secretary, but I just really love this quote, and this kind of sums up what we're going to talk about today. Before I'm always one of these people who want to give credit where credit is due, and a lot of the materials and kind of some of the leadership guidelines that I have received for this presentation, and just some of the things that really inspired me, is by the name of a guy named Craig Groeschel. He's got a podcast. I've listed his website there for the podcast below. And Craig is a great communicator. I just want to give credit where credit is due. So to get into what we want to talk about today, the pathway of what we're going to try to accomplish here. And you can kind of see it starting with at the top, the understanding this topic. We're going to talk about the topic itself, and we're going to kind of go around and try to hit all of these different, I guess, categories that we're going to try to connect on. I want you to notice they're all tied into how they help lead us to engage with our clients and our staff through these times and uncertainties. Now, I also want to just make it known that you're going to hear me interchange words like uncertainty and crisis. I know they're not exactly the same, but for the sake of this presentation, we're going to just consider that if I say crisis, we really mean also mean uncertainty and vice versa. Because a lot of times in uncertainty, we find it in the midst of crisis. And definitely in a time of crisis, we usually always see uncertainty. So even though they're not exactly the same, I want to make sure that we all know that. And then the other thing is we're going to kind of tread on some uncharted territory for most of us near the end. And I'm going to kind of leave you with some action items like I always try to do. Now, none of this would be possible without our great leader. And I love Wendy Kennedy. I love what she does. You know, I'm a certified coach with Wendy. If you're not, and I'm not been paid to say this or even asked to say this, but if you've never participated in in her courses, So What, Who Cares, Why You, you're missing out on a whole dynamics for making your organization better and influencing your ecosystem. Wendy offers so much detail on how to help clients forward. And so it was a great decision the day that I signed up for her course. But in one of Wendy's—
You better stop that or I'm going to have to write you a check.
Okay, well, it's all true. And, but one of the things in one of her books, she mentions about this quote: many innovators struggle to articulate the value of their ideas, which we know is true in what we do. They focus on what it is instead of why it matters. And this is kind of the heart of what I want to share today. And I've come up with my own little quote, of course, and I'm just going to read this. Like, I'm not going to read every slide, but I really want you to get a feel for what we're talking about here. Because in times of crisis and uncertainties, as leaders, we can check the boxes of what needs to be done to manage situations. But real leadership will focus on why it matters in order to lead through the uncertainty and crisis. The why will be a roadmap and plan for leaders to be relevant guides. And the why will also be a catalyst of hope for teams and clients as you navigate through the unknowns. So kind of keep that tucked away, and I think that will be relevant as we move forward. So how is this all happening, impacting our organizations? We know that we face certain times right now, but I just want us to begin with understanding that no one is exempt from times of uncertainty or crisis. As the key takeaway at the bottom says, this is not our first crisis, and second of all, it's not the last one. And so we can all remember other crises we've gone through, but just simply because this is global and this has impacted the whole world, and not only our world, but the whole world, it's on the forefront of what we see happening. So, but this isn't the first one we've ever faced. And I think if we step back and realize that, we'll understand that, you know, this is significant, but we've done this before. And this has not only impacted health, but it's also economics. But the basic thought here is we should not be surprised that something has happened, because it's going to happen again somehow in some other form. So what is really happening in a time of uncertainty? And so as we start looking into the leadership side, is we understand that we've had a plan in place, and we're carrying out a certain mission or plan, and then all of a sudden, radically, something has changed, significantly changed. And we can see that where we're at now. But as we talk about these crises, and as we talk about the uncertainty, I want you to realize that this applies to just about every circumstance that we face, and as far as crisis and uncertainty. So, there was a plan. We were on our way to do something, and now things have changed. I don't know about you, but I'll just talk about this time of uncertainty now. My plans for 2020 went south pretty quick. Everything that I had planned and our organization and our team has planned pretty much has changed, and not necessarily in scope and exactly what's happening, but in just about every way how we're going to do something has changed. And we also have to realize that in these times of uncertainty and crisis, it does add an extra layer of pressure for leaders. Right? Everybody's saying, well, no kidding. And I'm stating the obvious here, but it does create pressure for us. And then, and the reason, I think the main reason that happens is because we're forced to make decisions without all the facts, and, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We can't really say, really, we don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. And early on in this crisis, every day was something new. So for us to make good decisions as leaders, it's hard to make decisions without all the facts and information. And coupled with all of that is, how do we lead when we ourselves are somewhat fearful? And I'm going to be really, blunt with you. I'm sure there haven't been too many people who are leaders who have walked through this current situation and haven't in some way been fearful. I know I have. I fear the unknown. I'm fearful for my families. I'm fearful, are we going to have jobs? Are our organizations going to still be around? I know as a leader, and as you as a leader, and no matter what you do, the people that work with us, or the employees and such, how are they going to be? How are they doing? This has caused a lot of strife and fear. But here's the bright spot. Leadership is always important, but in times of uncertainty and crisis, leadership will be obvious, and it has to shine forth. We've always talked about, leading is important, and we know that. But it's in times of uncertainty and crisis that leaders need to step through and step up. I love this next phrase: good leaders lead through hard times, not just in hard times. And that's another way of saying it. Good leaders manage through hard times, they lead through hard times, not just manage the hard times. And so what we're calling on is for us as leaders to step up and to lead our teams, and then to teach others how to lead through hard times. So when we talk about this, I'm talking about my teammates. I'm talking about our clients and our customers and such. We're trying to lead them as they lead their teams also. So this is directly from Craig Rochelle, but I love this. 2 considerations for a leader in this is that, first of all, every major crisis creates unexpected problems. If we could pause, we won't, but if we could pause and just think about all the problems that have happened just because of COVID-19, the list would go on and on and on. But on the other hand, every major crisis creates unprecedented opportunities, because a lot of times when there's a problem, there's a solution. And as entrepreneurial mindset driven people, we look to solve those problems, which create opportunities. And of course, no presentation will be good or right without a quote from Sir Winston himself, is to never let a good crisis go to waste. And in a lot of ways, that is really true. And so thanks, Winston. I love that. But we're here where we're at. Why don't we do something about this? So what do we do in these times of uncertainty? Well, as leaders, I think it's very, very important to address the problems instead of just tucking them away or hiding from them. As leaders, we have to address these problems and really deal with them head on. Because in times of crisis and uncertainty, there are those opportunities that we mentioned on the previous slide, that those opportunities can sometimes create opportunities. And those opportunities would be, first of all, to create some sort of clarity. I don't know about you, but it just seems like to me that a lot of things have been put on pause. We've all been able to step back, take a deep breath when we can, and not everything is pressing all the time like normal business would have been. So sometimes we can step back and look at, what needs to be changed in our organizations. Heck, what needs to be changed in my life? And then what focus what do we need to focus on for that change? And, is there something we need to do differently? This can also provide opportunities to make changes that, we possibly have been wanting to do for a long time. And maybe in the midst of the fray, we just didn't have the opportunity and time to do. I find it interesting here in downtown Muncie, Indiana, and Muncie does have a pretty vibrant downtown, but there's a business, brick and mortar store that's been there for a long time named Jack's Camera Shop. And of course, back in the day, it's where you took your Polaroid film to get developed, and where you could buy more film and you could buy your Kodak camera. And it was very very active with customers in and out. And then over the years, they have changed drastically to providing higher end equipment and such. And just recently, Jack's Camera Shop announced that they're closing their brick and mortar forever. And although everybody in the community was, oh darn, wow, this is sad. This crisis has, taken another business out. Let me just tell you that 5-6 years ago, I was working with Mike, the owner of Jack's Camera Shop, and he was already trying to figure out how to close their brick and mortar, simply because their online business was so vibrant and so profitable that he really did not need a brick and mortar to really grow his business. So that was 5 years ago or so. It's interesting is that he took this time because he was able to take a break, see things from a different perspective. So did COVID-19 really make Mike close his business? No, not really. It was just provided him the opportunity. People also see things from a different perspective. And I know this is very important for me because you get into this rut, you get into this daily grind, you get going and going and going. And for me, you can get in that rut. We're so busy. We're going from one client to the next, from one meeting to the next. And well, taking a pause can allow us to see maybe something from a different perspective. It also allows us to see other people from a different perspective. And I know personally, I've worked with some people that are going through this right now. They're seeing their team in a new light. They're looking at other things that their teams may be gifted at doing, or really want to do something different. And the other thing is, some of these times really uncover or expose blind spots we never knew we had. And so these are a time for personal get wells as also. And this doesn't just impact employees or clients, it impacts all of us. So the key takeaway here is leaders do not manage in times of uncertainty and crisis. Again, leaders lead through that time. So here's my favorite slide. This is taken from a book from Jeff Mannion called The Land Between. I've kind of adapted it on my own. And this is actually something that a number of Sundays ago, our pastor shared online. And as I was listening to it, I'm thinking, this really works business-wise too. So bear with me in a little bit as you see this slide. First of all, on the left, we'll see what we call the way things were. Just remember a couple months ago, the way things were, the hustle and bustle and the hectic nature that we were all going through. We had all of our plans for all of our events and how we are going to handle everything for the rest of the year. And then all of a sudden, something changed. So, but there's where we were. If you go all the way to the right, we look at the way we hope things become. And if you're like me, which I know a lot of you are, because, we're the entrepreneurial mindset, we're visionaries, and we're always looking, what's going to happen in the future. And so a lot of times the way things, how they were going, always lead us into the times of where we're going to go. However, something happened, and what we're going to call this the land between. And the land between is that area that is between the way things were and then the way things are going to be. And we're kind of in this area in between. which I think is a beautiful phrase to say the land between. Now, as I look at this from a practical perspective, this time of the land between is a great time for change. You know, and maybe we even call this the time of pivot. The things the way they were and are moving to where we want to go. We could call this maybe a time of pivot, of change, of innovation, and then also things I like are growth. And so as those things move through, that land between can be a very, very valuable time instead of just a time of drudgery and a time of like, you know, I'm trapped here. It's kind of like don't waste a good crisis. This land between is the time to really make those changes and such. The land between offers the greatest possibility to develop trust, loyalty, and next steps together with your team. You know, this is something that we have cherished here at the Innovation Connector. We just have a small team. Lori, Alexis, and myself, and our board of directors, we're a team. But we have taken time to talk about things together. We are looking at some new direction, possibly. We've made some adjustments on some events that we're going to have. So the land between has kind of been a productive time for us. And I think we all have to remember is that we can't change what happens all of the time, but we can choose our response of what happens. So now you know why I like that slide so much. And I know some of you now are going to steal that. And if you steal it, good for you. I'm proud of you. So some of the ways that we can engage employees, and as leaders, you know, we want to engage our employees in the correct way during these times. First of all, it's very imperative that we're honest and consistent. We don't need to dance around issues. We need to be honest with our answers, but we also want to make sure, and this is for employees as well as there may be there's a role of hierarchy here, who shares what, is to make sure you only share with those that you're authorized to share it with. You don't want to be the office blabbermouth if you're not supposed to be. But share things and be honest. Now, this is sometimes hard for some people, and but you know, this is not a time to tell people what they want to hear. It's a time to be honest. The second of all is to listen and pay attention. Now, I think it's very interesting. Hearing and listening are a little different, but this is a time to listen and be intentional about what you're listening to. When you're listening to other people, it's a good idea to try to get a feel for, you know, what's happening in the business and the organization. It doesn't take much if we just take time to listen and pay attention. And again, with the nature of any crisis or uncertainty, sometimes there's a pause in there. That's a good time to do that. The other thing is we need to meet and communicate often. Over communication is very, very important. Everybody handles it a little differently, but it is okay to over communicate in these times. I don't know about you, but our organization is governed by a board of directors. Sometimes our board of directors they're quiet. They're a great group of people. But what I've done, and they will tell you because they've been telling me, is that I have been communicating a whole bunch more than ever before with my board on some of the things that we're doing and how we're handling it. And then usually getting them involved with some ideation and such. But it is a good time to over communicate. But the other thing is when we communicate, it's not a form of just giving out information, but it's also, we can evaluate the specific needs that some of our team or our clients, people that we work with, what their needs are. And one thing I found out is that everyone handles uncertainty different. And that is so true. Someone can be a worrywart about everything that happens and afraid to even think about what is happening. At the same time, some people just go on and are really quiet. The bottom line here is be the leader. Let your team see you being the leader. Now, that doesn't mean you're right all the time. Be vulnerable, but be the leader. So what do we do in times of uncertainty? Well, here's a few things that leaders must do. And of course, in leadership and management, I got Peter Drucker in there because that's what you have to do also. So number one is that, clearly define the problems that need to be addressed. Again, this goes back to the truth. And so you want to make sure you define the problems. People that are working with you, clients. One of the things that I remember going through a time of crisis and uncertainty with in the business world that I was in, there was some shortages and there's some issues. And not only were we at risk, but our clients were at risk. And I remember one customer telling me one time, tell me the truth. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. And I that stuck with me. And I think that's really true in when we handle things. The other thing is we need to be wise when we make decisions. And it's very important at this time as leaders to think long-term, but plan short-term. Short-term needs are more important than long-term goals at this time, but you have to think of both. And then just kind of going down, make sure that as you communicate the truth, do it with empathy. Not everybody handles this stuff correctly. So as a leader, you can set yourself apart by being that empathetic listener. The other thing is, as we take care of other people, we need to make sure we take care of ourselves. This should be a non-negotiable. We need to sleep, we need to eat, we need to chill. But also we have to understand that in time of crisis, in time of uncertainty, that we talked about these, everybody handles it differently, is that some clients and some of our employees, mental health issues, show their colors. And so it is very important for us to understand that. So we're going to delve a little bit into this as a leader and some understanding some mental health issues. I know this is something we don't usually talk about, but I have the mic right now and I'm going to do it for a few minutes. So this is according to a study from the University of San Francisco. I don't know where it is on my screen. I think it popped off, but this is from a study. But half of us as entrepreneurs suffer from at least one form of mental health condition in our lifetimes. Yep, that's us, 50% of us. Half of us on this call are dealing with some or will deal with some or have dealt with some mental health issues. And we're twice as likely to suffer from depression, other substance abuse, ADHD. The scary one is twice as likely to have suicidal thoughts. Now, I don't speak from this just as a study perspective. I speak to this as one who has been experiential in this realm. And I have dealt with for a long time, I guess almost most of my life, depression, anxiety have been two real relevant things in my own personal life. And so, I've learned to deal with it. I've worked with people. Sometimes I even have to go on medication just so that I can conduct my normal daily affairs. But at the same time, I understand what I'm going through and how this impacts me and other people. But it's not, when I see studies like this, I'm going to go, okay, so maybe I do have issues sometimes, but I'm not crazy because so many people have this. So think about it. We as entrepreneurs, why? Why would we have mental health issues? Well, statistically, we are, but just think about it and think of yourself, even if you're running an ecosystem or an ESO. First of all, startups are hard. I'll say that again. Startups are really, really hard. There's nothing easy about it. If it is, let me know. I'll be your partner because I've never seen one. The other thing is we have this imposter syndrome. We want to be someone sometimes who we aren't, just simply because we want to be something that we are to other people. We want to show people maybe a different side of us that hey, they think we're strong, we're leaders and such. And so there's a lot of imposter syndrome. You know, if you're a leader, you know, as a founder, you've got to be the rock. And I think the other thing is that startups can be alienating. I can't tell you the number of people that I've had in my office, and I've come to the conclusion that being an entrepreneur is one of the loneliest places to be in this world. And so that's important to understand. And then the other thing is, you know, we do have stress. I don't know about you, but in my entrepreneurial journey, it's been full of stress because of the uncertainty. Let's see how this kind of all goes together. And again, our self-worth tends to be tied up in our business. We get self-isolated, and all of this happens. I'm not going to read this quote, but I'll take a couple sentences from it. But who suffers? This is from Brad Feld's column on surviving the dark nights of the soul. But Brad, it's said that many, many people suffer this. They're very visible, successful, charismatic people, and they're suffering in silence. This impacts all of us in some way. So what can we do to deal with the issues of mental health in the ecosystem? That's for us, our clients, our employees. Well, support employees and clients who disclose their situation. Maybe they're struggling from some depression and such. Maybe instead of judging and trying to write them off and saying, well, you know, I don't want to touch that, maybe we should try to figure out what services are available to help people. The second thing is we got to be careful because there are laws in place to protect the mental health situations of individuals. And so we have to learn to be adaptable. And those are not to bind us into something, it's to protect our employees, protect the clients, protect us. And then the other thing is each of us can do our part to remove the stigma of mental health. I'm trying to do that even a little bit today, is that it's normal, you know, and, you know, I know, you know, earlier I had, I substituted the word mental health with mental well-being. And although that may be like a nicer word, really what we're dealing with is mental health issues, and our mental well-being is important. But I wanted to deal with this just head on. And then us as individuals who run ecosystems or entrepreneurial support organizations, we need to create a positive and very supportive organization so that people can thrive. So how do we handle this? Well, first of all, we need to have regular and honest, candid conversations with people in our world who will speak the truth. And when I talked about our world, whatever yours is, I'm just going to go and then we also need to join regular sessions like this. Well, if they're in person, live, online, whatever, make sure you engage with people who understand you. I've been married almost 41 years in a couple of weeks, and you know, love my wife dearly, but she doesn't get what I do. She may understand, like, oh, he goes to the office and he helps businesses and such, but she doesn't get what I do. I need you so that I can learn better and I can be better at myself. Another thing is to keep in regular contact with others. And I just want to let you know, I make this part of my daily routine. And I'm saying daily because it almost is. And I'll just be very honest. I have regular communication with, you know, a couple people, and it helps hold me accountable, but it also makes me a much better person. I hope you won't mind, Carl, but Carl LePan and I, we're almost neighbors and about an hour or so apart. But, you know, Carl and I regularly talk, and I can always trust Carl to ask me, hey, I hear in your voice something's wrong. Are you okay? What's up? Let's talk. And the same way with him. Someone like Carl in your life is unbelievably valuable. John Hannock is the same way. John and I have communicated a lot over the years, and we've been able to share those gut feelings with each other. And I'm not a real touchy-feely person at all, but sometimes it's important to talk to people who get you. And the takeaway up above is just in our unique entrepreneurial world, we should consider that being connected in some way to each other is not only healthy, but necessary. I encourage you to connect with someone. And then, you know, doctors and nurses, they have to stay healthy so they can help other people. Same holds true for us. So I've just kind of dreamed a little bit about some of the things that, we can do: sleep, play, chill, eat, nap, love, all the stuff you can read. I came to the word workout, and I don't know, it's still there, but I just kind of hit it a little bit. And then if you really look deep enough, you'll see the word nap in there a whole bunch of times, because the older I get, the more I've enjoyed naps. So tips for leaders in this uncertain time, and in any uncertain time, so we're going to kind of head to the end here, is don't isolate leaders, be visible, make sure you're present, take a walk around your facility, greet people if you see them, social distancing, of course, but make sure that they know that you're around. Watch that others don't isolate. Someone needs to be there for them. And just remember, you can't force one way on anyone as they deal with uncertainty, so listen. Be truthful, but at the same time, start painting a path forward. And then always remember that teamwork makes the dream work. Below, you'll see here the Founder Support Fund. That's just recent, but Patrick Riley from the GAN Network started this whole conversation, and they're starting some grant-making funds for supporting founders and their mental health. You can look it up there if you click on the link when you get the link. So as we kind of close here, Bob Goff, who has this quote, "The world is full of difficulties, but it's even more full of hope." I sincerely and truly believe that. Bob is one of my favorite authors and speakers. But I think there's a couple things that we can take from all of this as we close this session and lead on, and that there's usually ways to be honest, but we don't always have to be harsh or hard. There's a nice way to say the truth, so we don't have to pound people over the head. While painting a realistic scenario of a situation, look for ways to infuse some sort of hope in there, like light at the end of the tunnel. And this is a leader's time to believe in the people that you usually put in place. This is a time where you believe in them, build trust and loyalty. And this is why you've been entrusted a leader. This is why this is why we've been entrusted to be a leader. Is our time to shine. So the final comment I would have on this is, what do leaders do in time of uncertainty? Leaders lead through times of uncertainty and crisis. Leaders lead. And so that's my encouragement to you today, is in any time of crisis, in any time of uncertainty, whatever it may be that you're going through, I encourage you, be the leader. Your team depends on it. Your clients depend on it. Your ecosystem depends on it. You can make a difference. And with the quote from Christine Kane, sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but remember, you've actually been planted. So go do something great, and because you've been meant that way. It just so happens that this month, I didn't know this ahead of time, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Kind of interesting that it ties in here. So thank you for joining me today. And I know there might be some questions, and Wendy and John are going to take care of any of the discussion. But thank you for the opportunity for me to share with you today. I've enjoyed this. I love the research of doing this. And if anybody has any comments or questions when you get this, you can email me or call me. I'd love to chat. So with that, John, Wendy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted, and thanks for that, the candor and honesty. I know everybody deeply appreciated it. Very thoughtful presentation, and one that gives us a lot to think about. I do want to ask actually you this question that's been posted, but I think I'd also suggest everybody kind of noodle through this, because it's a question that applies to everybody. What is the biggest opportunity surprise that you didn't see in the potential of the innovation connector until you leaned into the crisis?
Wow. I still think we're working on that. First of all, I've been surprised, how we sometimes think we're all needed, and everybody is clamoring to us because we've got an incubator here and they all want to come in here and they need us and such. And if you come into our center now, it's dead. It's like a ghost town. So people, I found out people may not need our space as much as we thought they did, but we found out that people still need our services as much as they have. And so what we're learning is, how do we build those services in a different platform to reach people at that need? So, maybe we're rethinking space, how to use space effectively. But I don't think what we have for people is ever going to change. People need us. Does that help?
Yeah, that's a good answer. And actually, I want to add, I think something that we've learned is similar, and that is the availability and the access for our services has broadened. It's actually widened. I think it's become the great democratizer, if you will. We had a pitch day yesterday for the ag fund that I run, and two of the companies pitching were from the far corners of the state. That in the past they would have made the trip to campus to pitch, but they were always kind of viewed as being on the outside looking in. And I think for the first time yesterday, with all the pitches being virtual, they were on absolutely equal footing. They've availed themselves of our services, and I sense that they're more in the fold, if you will, than perhaps they had been in the past.
Sure. Well, John, one of the other things that I was thinking about too is, I think it's allowed us to broaden our scope a little bit too, because with so much activity happening in the incubator and all the different things that are happening, I think it's really, we actually opened up, since things were quiet here, we made our services available to the entire community. And I've done a lot of coaching. Lori, our financial director, has done a lot of coaching and talking with financials for people. So we've really opened this whole array of services. Our Alexis has, had some talks with, social media with people. But the idea is, we've just kind of made our services available to the entire community. And people are noticing that. And we're not doing it to be noticed, but we have resources. Why not help people? And I think during this time period, I've been trying to keep count. It kind of is hard sometimes just because of the way people come in and out. But there's been like 90 businesses in some way or the other, organizations and businesses, that we've actually touched and impacted in some way during this time that we would have never been able to touch before this. So I don't know what that means, but it's something that's going to happen.
I applaud you for that, and I know from when you and I chatted, I think it was last week, the sheer numbers of business people, companies of all in every part of the entrepreneurial journey and the growth journey. The number that you've touched has been absolutely remarkable.
Well, and sometimes we get all involved in our tech world, but just ask anybody. You can even ask Wendy now, right? But ask anybody if they're not ready for a haircut or to go to the beauty shop or to the salon.
What are you saying? Did you see my hair?
No, we were talking about it earlier. But the point is that sometimes we get so caught up in our own little tech world that we forget that it all happens together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ted, I just want to make sure that this is in the recording, because I said it in the chat box as someone who comes from a family with a history of mental health issues. You don't know how much it means to me that you would put this in as a cornerstone in your presentation to leaders, because I think that it is the leader's job to set this awareness and this tone. And we're particularly vulnerable right now, as you said, that this, and we need to be on our watch for this, because, it is, you're right, it is, you struck a chord with me. It is very lonely. I've said this many times. It's lonely being a founder. It's overwhelming at times to carry the responsibility for other people. And I think at this time, as we all set back out to, go forward, we as leaders need to be extremely conscious to watch for the signs, but also to create the environment and the culture that says that we're sensitive to this, and we're open. Open conversations are such a key part of helping people deal with mental health, as you said. So you're a hero to all of us, because I think it takes tremendous courage to make this a cornerstone of your presentation and to be so open to share your own personal story.
Well, thank you. It's important. It's very important. And,
Yes.
the older I get, it's easier to share some of this stuff. Because, really, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore, but no, I do. I do care, but it's very important. And so thank you.
Yeah, it is. And it's a very important leadership dimension.
I agree. Having the conversation is important, and so many of us have experienced it in one way, shape, or form in our lifetime, both professionally and personally. And I just appreciate you making it a part of the dialogue. It's essential.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody? Well, okay. So this wraps up what Wendy and I are calling Series 1 of the webinar series. A break. If you have ideas for other content, please let us know. And with that, Wendy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. Well, I don't have a whole lot to add to. I just want to echo what some of you have said in the chat box. It's been equally wonderful for all of us, for John and I, and for everyone who has presented, and just the general overall participation. I think, when you start these things, you really hope that they'll strike a chord with people and that everyone will jump in and be part of it. So John and I certainly never looked at it that it was our show. It was certainly all of us together on this. And, we just happened to have a Zoom account, so it made sense that we'd start the ball. So I thank all of you for jumping in, sharing your knowledge, sharing your ideas and ways to help us all move forward. And as we've said, and I just want to make sure we reinforce this, we're happy to jump back on again and start up a new series of conversations, and help out to kind of orchestrate those for all of us at any time. So it's really, don't see this as the end so much as we're just taking a pause, and we will definitely pick back up with content that, again, that catches the attention of people and that people want to kind of jump in on. So that's what we hope to do. So thank you all. The recordings I'll send out an email, just a final kind of email on this series and the link to the recordings, so that some of you said you'd really like to listen to them again. So I'll make sure to get that into your inbox so that you have that as well. Okay, that's a wrap.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ted. Wonderful. And yes, thanks everyone. And we will talk again soon.
Okay, thank you.